Well, welcome to a blustery Thursday morning here in Minnesota for your daily encouragement. And we are at chapter 3 of Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Life Together. And we've been talking about fellowship and worship. We've been talking about the day with others. And now we're going to talk about being alone in our fellowship, alone with God and alone with others. And so he brings up this insight, which I think is really good. Many people seek fellowship because they are afraid to be alone. Because they cannot stand loneliness, they are driven to seek the company of other people. There are Christians, too, who cannot endure being alone, who have had some bad experiences with themselves, who hope they will again have some help in association with others. They are generally disappointed, and they blame the fellowship for what is really their own fault. The Christian community is not a spiritual sanatorium. The people who come into fellowship because he is running away from himself is misusing it for the sake of diversion, no matter how spiritual this diversion may appear. He is really not seeking community at all, but only a distraction which will allow him to forget his loneliness for a brief time, a very alienation that creates a deadly isolation of man. The disintegration of communication and all genuine experience, and finally resignation and spiritual death, are the result of such attempts to find a cure. And so, in very blunt terms, Dietrich is talking about the necessity of times to not only be in fellowship, but also to be alone. And that is something that maybe for some is a comfort, especially if you are an introvert. Or if you are an extrovert, which I'm normally most of my life, I have always sought fellowship more than seeking aloneness. But I have often through my ministry years and through this life, have often seen the importance of being alone. I grew up as an only child, and so I had many times where I learned the necessity and just the everydayness of being alone. I discovered fellowship at I would say my high school age, and it grew to be one of the things that I really, really craved. But I also learned that I had to have and nurture a valuable alone time as much as I needed to value an important community time. And it is important to make sure to keep those two things in balance. But in many ways, we are never alone. We always have God with us. We don't always are not always alone from the church community. In fact, if we have a Bible or even parts of a Bible, we have Christian community with the speaker who speaks from many generations ago. All of these are reminders that we are never truly alone, but we're talking about, of course, not being all the time with other Christians living and breathing or worshiping. And that is something to be desired as much as Christian fellowship. So, my friends, I would say look at your life. Is there a balance there? Maybe depending on your orientation, to be an extrovert or an introvert, you probably will desire one versus the other. I've often found that I've had seasons of extroversion where I desire to be in community, and sometimes I've had desires of introversion, which actually have grown stronger over the years. I never thought I would ever say that. But we have seasons, I think, and we have dispositions, and God can be found in both. So don't pity yourself if you find yourself alone today, and don't take advantage, or how should I say, take for granted the fellowship you have, because it might change into something different. I would just advise to make sure that your life is in balance, balance with what God is calling you to do, balance in what God is calling us to do as fellow believers in Christ. We'll be exploring that in the days and weeks to come. All I can say is make sure you know that Jesus is walking with you, and you will always be in his presence, no matter if you are in a great fellowship, a small fellowship, or even alone. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.